You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network. Now the largest new media platform on the web and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Fashion Star After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Fashion Star After Show.
I'll do what you guys do.
Hey guys, if you are tuning in right now, this is the after show for Fashion Star, and we have a very special guest in the studio today as we round down the last 2 episodes of the season. So I'm not going to yap too much. I'm just going to go around the table and introduce everybody. To my right,
Hey, I'm Stef Z.
And I am Erika Vieira.
Caprice Willard.
Yay!
Yes.
Caprice, on very short notice, came to join us.
Yes,
So-
Caprice Willard, one of the judges in the Fashion Star competition, is here with us in the studio today. And I'm Diona Vaughan, and we are ready just to jump right in with our special guest. We've got lots of questions for her as we cover the next to the last episode of this competition series. So let's just dig right in without further ado. So this episode is about trending now and then, and I really liked that theme because each, basically the premise of it, each designer had to pick a decade, correct? And they had to design 2 pieces from that decade, but they also had to make sure that it was current and modern and it fit into, you know, modern day society. And I like that trend. What do you think about it?
I did. I thought it was a very unique pick of you know, whatever trend they had to do for this week, because it was taking something that they thought like resonated with them from the past and making it current, which I think people can, like, the whole vintage thing is in but out, and I think people can go one way or the other with that, and I think overall everyone did a good job with this.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would think Caprice, as the buyer, it seems like so often, too, there's always trends coming back and being so aware of, you know, the trends that are now versus, you know, what's too trendy. So what were your thoughts on this particular
Well,
task?
we were really excited about the challenge because exactly what you said, there's so much that's kind of, you know, we're really in this influx of what's old is new really coming back. We're on this whole arc. It started a few years ago when leggings came back. And literally everything is coming back, inclusive of the cutout flash dance sweatshirts and all that kind of look. So, you know, there's a big difference between vintage and, you know, taking an old idea or a previous theme and making it new and fresh and different. And I thought for the designers, it was just kind of the perfect culmination of all the tasks that they've done up till now to really show us how they can take something that might be, you know, tried and true, you know, something we've seen before, and put their spin on it and make it hopefully a new idea.
Right.
Now, speaking of the actual themes for every single episode, is that something that the buyers, do you guys have any say in, you know, coming up with what those themes are, or like, how does that happen?
I would say what I really love about Fashion Star is that the show is in some ways, you know, pretty organic, and they do really try to utilize their resources. So the fact that they have us as buyers, you know, available for them to bounce ideas off of, they definitely took advantage of that. We did a lot of things in the first season, some challenges that worked, some that didn't, and one of the biggest call outs from us buyers was that we really wanted each challenge to really push the designers to show their range. Because, you know, not just a challenge for a challenge sake, you know, something that's going to be fun and quirky, but instead something that's really going to show us that they really have what it would take to do a capsule collection for all of us. And I think this season they did a much better job of that. But there was some things like, in first season, the Buyer's Challenge, where we really had a chance to talk to the designers, was much later in the season. And we felt like by then, there were maybe some designers that we could have course corrected or kind of helped them earlier, you know, that were really talented, but just kept like making the same mistakes over and over with very little, you know, direct involvement from us. So the Buyer's Challenge was much earlier this year. The His and Her Challenge was a little bit earlier. So I think some of those things allowed us to see sooner, you know, how much talent, how much range did these designers really have?
I have a quick question. What part of the backstory, do you guys see any of that? Like some of the behind the scenes drama? Okay, so you guys just see, it's kind of like when you're preparing for a trade show, like there's all kinds of chaos, but once you're there and have your booth, you're like, I'm here.
Yada, 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 yeah. Okay. Exactly. We see none of the backstory. All we know, I mean, as we were picking the designers, we did learn some of their story because many of them are, you know, already selling or, you know, have some level of success. So we kind of knew a little about them, but all of their personal backstories or any of that piece really didn't go into any of our decision making. And which I personally think is a good thing because the goal really is for this to be as close to a real life buying situation as it would be. And as much as I may personally like a designer or a vendor or whatever, I, you know, don't really allow that to impact if I'm going to buy them or not. So, but it was interesting for me personally to sit just like a viewer and see all of the chaos, see the, you know, some of the, you know, the infighting or whatever, to see some of their personal stories roll out. And, you know, you wonder, would that have caused you to make a different decision or not? I don't know. You know, but I do like kind of not having known that stuff and seeing it after. And it, in some ways, it kind of reinforced, you know, some of the people that I was like, wow, they really have had to overcome a lot, or they seem to really deal with stress well. To then see them actually in stressful situations, you're like, okay.
Now, outside of the Buyer's Challenge, did you have other opportunities to connect with the designers and learn a little bit more about their story and kind of mentor them in a way? Or,
you know,
no?
we not so much. We had I think 2 touch points with them where, you know, outside of when we actually picked them, right? We had maybe 2 opportunities, the Buyer's Choice, and there was like one other where we had a chance to just kind of talk to them about our brand and to really talk to them about what we felt were going to be, you know, either strengths or liabilities for them as designers as they look to, you know, meet our needs as brands. And then come the finale, the final 3 buyers or the final 3 designers, we do have an opportunity to touch base with each of them to help them with the, you know, the capsule collection.
Speaking of the behavior when you're watching it back of the contestants, was there anybody's behavior that maybe surprised you or just that maybe impressed you that you weren't really obviously aware of?
You know, I would say probably the one thing that I was impressed by for all of them is every single one of them had their own mini breakdown, and every single one of them found a way to rise from it, which I'm not even sure that I would be able to handle the level of pressure they have to get these items designed. And as you all know, I mean, designers have 6 months, a year, you know, 2 years to think about the growth of their brand. And we were saying every week, oh, and by the way, you know, do this, do that. So that amount of pressure I thought was, you know, pretty kind of astronomical. I was very impressed by Daniel, truly, just being one of the youngest or the youngest on the show, and his evolution of being able to find his voice or maintain his voice, but still find a way to be more accessible and more saleable. And that quest, I think, is, you know, something all designers could relate to. How do I maintain my voice, but still I want to sell? And how do I bring those 2 together? I think he was a great example of someone who figured it out, you know, at the end.
Interesting.
I think he totally figured it out. There really is a, from start to finish, I definitely could see that. In the beginning, he was just like, okay. And I, like, even last night on the show, whatever, it was that line that he said that was like, it's possible that I could go home. And if I go home, I don't want to be like, I should have designed that. So he went outside the box. You know what I mean? He was like, I'm just going to do this because this is me and this is what I have to do. And I gave him a lot of credit for doing that because his piece was very, you know.
It was out there.
Totally.
It
but
paid off,
worked.
though.
Yeah.
No,
and
it totally paid off for him.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think in the beginning, I don't think he would have been confident to take that risk. Maybe I think his confidence also is so.
Well, speaking of taking a risk, how important? Because I know it's a very fine, thin line. How important is it for a designer, in your eyes, from where you sit, to stay true to their brand, their vision, how they want to execute and see themselves versus, okay, well, at the end of the day, I'm trying to sell clothes and, this is a business. How important is it to take the advice and the feedback from a buyer, from a store? Like, where's the line drawn?
I would say, in my personal opinion, I think it's extremely important to take the advice of the buyers. But I think it's just as important to be clear on what your brand is and to have that healthy conflict. In all of my opportunities where I've worked with designers and vendors and, been a buyer and all of that, the best product always came from us having a healthy dialogue about it.
Yeah.
If I wanted someone to just do what I wanted them to do, it would be a private brand.
Exactly.
So
You know what I mean? We do our own, and we do that very well at Macy's.
Yeah.
We have a lot of private brands that we've identified are great, perfect product for our customer, and we do that. But we have, brands and vendors and designers that are supposed to bring something different. And you want them to be able to push back and say, okay, I see where you're going with that, but for me, it really needs to be like this. And then that might cause me to come a little further and say, you know what, I get where you're going with that, and let's do this together. But I think that healthy conflict, that kind of dialogue is what's really important, so that you both feel that you've had your voice and you've had your say.
It seems like that, I'm sorry, it seems like that's the #1 thing, even from the first season to this season, where it's the most challenging, I think, for these designers, is to be able to, figure out how to still be me, and how do I take this constructive criticism from my mentor and the buyer and just make it all come together.
Right.
Especially for a young designer, it seems like that's the biggest conflict within themselves.
Well, I mean, I would say that I think what we saw on all the shows this season is the designers that were still trying to figure out who they were as designers had it the hardest. Where they were just still trying to find their own personal voice. The ones who were very clear on their design aesthetic, it was still tough to take feedback and mentor feedback and mix it all together in this pot, but they at least were coming with a basic ingredient into the pot, whereas some of the other ones, they were still trying to figure out their own voice, and that, I think, is where you saw some really kind of go off the rails and take too much feedback or maybe not take enough. But I personally found it very entertaining, especially watching, sitting back and watching all of the drama unfold, because like I said, we had no idea what really went into the clothes coming down the runway.
Well, it's funny because a lot of time as the buyers, you guys really don't. You know what I mean? Like even, from my personal experience, our first show, I made our samples in my bathtub, and we got an order from Neiman's. They would not have thought we would have been able to ship on time if they knew that. But 2 years later, it was the coolest story ever that we started the brand in the bathtub because we had been shipping. You know what I mean? And they don't know that. So it's like once you show up, it's like all you guys see is what they present.
Exactly.
So it's kind of, it is interesting to see that.
Were you making swimsuits?
I was, no.
One of the things I've been really wanting to know about the process, the buying process, is when they're coming down the runway, I'm assuming that it's not the first time that you saw it, that you're given photos and you have time to make a decision. What exactly is that process, so the listeners
and everyone can know? Well, I would say probably each one of us has a different process, but for me, because I have such a long experience as a buyer, I was able to really take it on like an actual buying responsibility. You know, we
here's
see
my
it
open to buy,
exactly,
blah, blah, yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So I started out, you know, here's my open to buy. This is, you know, based on trends. I got with our fashion office. We have, you know, a pretty extensive fashion office at Macy's, which is fantastic. So I was able to work with them ahead of time, make sure I was really clear on the, you know, the current, the soon to be, and the past, you know, post-peak basically trends, so that I was really, really clear on everything for men and women. And then I came up with a buy plan based on the different categories that I thought should be bought, you know, based on what we know is going to be important for the customer for the season, for spring and for summer. So I use that as kind of my like game plan, if you will. But every week, you never have any idea what the designers are actually going to bring. So once we saw, to your point, we did have the opportunity to see them ahead of time, you know, very quickly. And then I would use that as my kind of game plan.
How far ahead of time?
Maybe an hour. Or two.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking the day before.
No.
Yeah.
And is that photo, do you get an actual, can you feel it?
We actually had the opportunity, we'd see it on a mannequin.
Okay.
And, you know, so very, very quickly in the beginning before we taped, we'd have the opportunity to see them and really think about what we'd want to buy. And I would come up with, you know, my game plan. But there's still a lot of unknowns. You know, a fit mannequin is very different than a model. You know, you don't always get to see the drape and the, you know, the how it's going to work on an actual body. So, you know, things would change either to the good or the bad based on that. And then also, you have no idea what your fellow buyers are going to do. So, you know, I may think I'm going to buy Cassandra's dress for X amount, and I have no idea that, well, Taryn has the very same thought, you know, and what's that going to look like, you know? So I would say, in some ways, almost having the opportunity ahead of time really had almost no bearing, because all of us were making in-the-moment decisions based on what it looked like coming down the runway and what, you know, the other two were up to.
So that was all real time? Any bidding wars was real time? Okay.
Absolutely, 100% real time. And it really was, you know, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want this for your customer? Is it critical, or is it, you know, I like it, but, you know.
And
go ahead.
Do you have a budget per episode, or is it a total budget for the season?
No budget per episode.
Oh, is there a budget at all? Oh, okay.
Did you not get the memo?
Well, here, I have a question for you. Now, this is going to be from last season. So, obviously, last season, you know, we got to see the designers. There were buys, there weren't buys, blah, blah, blah. Now, after the show is over and it's said and done with, what if one particular item, if it sold out, it did well? Were there conversations with, you know, designers from last season? Can we find their things in Macy's still, or is it just something for the show?
You know, that's a really good question. We didn't anticipate last year the level of, I mean, the sellout process. That was, you know, I mean, this is all new to us, to bring retail real time, buy it same day. I mean, all of this was new for all of us. And the fact that we were selling out sometimes in 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Were there reorders? Did you have an opportunity to reorder?
We had, that was not in the plan to have any, because literally every week was something new, right? So none of that was kind of baked in the cake as far as, you know, our thought process. We just honestly did not anticipate it being quite as fantastic as it ended up being. So good problem to have. What we did this year is we tried to do a better job projecting how much of each thing we really needed to buy to allow the customer or the viewer the most opportunity. So you guys probably noticed this season, you know, even from day one, the buys were more substantial from all of us, because we kind of tried to bake in what we learned to say, okay, we really need to start at this level based on, you know, whatever. With that said, we still haven't had really any strategy around the reorder process, but we've talked a lot about it. We've talked a lot about it, because even this season, with us buying more up front, we still have had record sales. So I think we are in that thought process of how could we still stay true to the integrity of the show, of giving them, you know, like that up to the minute immediate gratification. You must buy it now to get it, but then also, you know, at the end of the day, we want to service, you know, the viewers and really give them the opportunity. The other piece of that is, you know, as these designers progress, how do we stay watchful of what they're doing in their careers with the thought process that some of these designers could very well be great additions to the Macy's portfolio down the road, or to Express, or to Saks, because it's not a normal buying situation for all three retailers to have to agree.
Right.
That's a unique twist to Fashion Star, right? So, you know, there may be some that we're like, wow, I'm going to watch that one because, you know, maybe he or she wasn't perfect for Saks or Express, but was absolutely perfect for Macy's.
Right.
So, you know, we want to watch him and kind of see what happens.
Because I know with Orly from last season, Orly has her own line on Tuck and West. I know that Kara, she launched, you know, Fashion Week, and she's in Saks. So it does make me wonder, like, what, you know, what happened to
what's
them?
next?
Yeah, what's next? You know, if you know, we loved something from Fashion Star last season and we bought it, well, the girl wants more. You know, where can I find it? So it does make me wonder, you know, where does that customer, where does she go? Like, how do you service her?
Well, I do think the one great, what I think is going to be a great byproduct of having designers that are far more established this season is that, let's say you fell in love with Joanna's, you know, designs. She actually has a brand, and you can go get her design aesthetic from her. You know, if it ends up not being, you know, at Macy's, Saks, or Express, they actually have a vehicle for you to go to. Almost every single one of them is doing something on their own. And I think that is kind of a nice addition for viewers, you know, to be able to still love their designers and buy from their designers through their own vehicles, their websites, or whatever.
And when you're buying a certain style, and in a lot of the cases they have, say, two colors, are you, and I've noticed that both colors don't always end up on the website. So you're not held true to the exact item that they present to you, or how does that work?
We actually have a lot more dialogue about everything that we buy than what ultimately gets cut for the show, obviously, right? So, I mean, it's like, I think, a 42-minute show, and we tape for like 4 hours or whatever. So we have we have a lot of conversation about what we're really going to ultimately buy, and, you know, sometimes that does or doesn't make it, but we do stay as true as possible to the actual design of the item. And if we're not going to design it exactly as the designer sent it down the runway, we absolutely say that. You know, if, say, a men's short has 2 pockets and we think it should only have one. You know, we'll say, hey, you know, we're probably going to remove that pocket.
Erika made a comment about that on something.
And we try to be really, really thoughtful about that, because we know that the customers and the viewers, literally in this day of, you know, DVR, you can, you know.
That's not what I'm going.
It's 2 inches shorter or whatever.
But also, too, about the fabric sometimes, because like a Saks $200,000 buy and a Macy's or Express, it's not the same. You know what I mean? It's not the same units, it's not the same everything. So do you guys play with fabrics too? Is there, like, you can
I can tell you, I can't really speak for the other two, but I can say for Macy's, we were actually really, really fortunate. We have an amazing MMG team who actually is the one who designed everything. And I was amazed at our ability to be true to form with virtually every item, you know, all the way down to the fabrications and the print selections. You know, some of the things I bought, I was like, oh goodness, this is beautiful, but how are we going to recreate this one? And their ability to source it and to be able to stay true to the fabrications, you know, it was pretty true to form. So I feel very good about that.
So you just brought up an interesting point. So from what you saw, the actual Macy's teams, they sourced that out to vendors and had it cut, so all that. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because the designers, because of the timing, we really are buying the design. We are buying the actual design. And so, you know, and then we're buying their idea. Sense. You know, I mean, we're also buying into their idea.
Because or else all the other stuff would have to be set up, like EDI, you'd have to worry about chargebacks. You'd have a whole can of worms.
A whole nother, exactly.
That makes perfect sense, and every single store has that entity.
It's almost like that licensing.
There was one thing that we bought Hunter's Romper. a couple of episodes ago.
Right.
And she did it pretty much, I think it was in a black and a white or something like that. We felt so good about that item that we thought it would be great in a color. So we actually added a third colorway and did it in like an electric blue.
Did you ask her for an opinion of a color, or did you guys
We did.
just
We
say-
asked her, what do you think, you know, if we were to do it in another color, what would you like to see it in? And so, you know, she gave us her ideas of what she thought, and then we incorporated that into the buy.
I have another question. So when you do buy these different designers, you know, designs as they come down the runway, what's in the label? Is the label Macy's? Is it, well, it's not private brand, but is it, you know, Hunter Bell for Macy's? Like, what's the label?
You know, I really should know this, especially since I bought quite a few Fashion Star items. But I think the label says, each week the label says Fashion Star Macy's or Macy's for Fashion Star or something like that. And then for the winning designer, it will say Cara Lyrics for Macy's or something like that on the hang tag.
Okay, I was always curious about that. Okay.
I have a question, or a suggestion. I feel like, well, because too, I feel like a lot of the times, even this season with maybe bigger buys, by the time the show aired on the West Coast, it was sold out. So just a thought is that whoever wins the show, all of their pieces should be available again.
Oh.
It's a good thought, isn't it?
That is a good thought. Thank you for giving that to me a week before the finale. Very helpful. Very.
Only if we would have met.
We were wondering that too, like, it's for us West Coasters. It doesn't seem like they release another wave. Yeah.
It's 3 hours later. Some sell in 10 minutes, and we can't even.
It's gone.
So if you're on the West Coast, forget about it. Because I know there was something that you wanted.
Yeah, a dress that I wanted from JesseRay and Garrett, and it was sold out.
Which one was it?
It was a black long sleeve with a short long sleeve dress.
Oh, yeah.
I forget if it was Macy's.
We didn't buy that one.
It was
but I know
Express. I think it was
Maybe
Express.
she could help you out.
Right, I know, right?
I know. I wanted that dress so bad. But literally, I literally, while I was watching the show, went online and it was sold out. Every size sold out practically. And I'm like, no.
I'm just such a good buyer. I don't know that there's anything that I could do to help you with that.
All right. Well, it's time to dig into this episode. But right before we do, I just want to remind you guys, please make sure you download our AfterBuzz recap on iTunes. It's 100% free, Free. There's nothing better than free. And we just also want to remind you to make sure you make your comments. We always read the feedback. We take your suggestions, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. You don't like my lipstick. You don't like my hair. You don't like something. Out. My dress is inside out, which is not. But no, we really, really value everything that you have to say, and we're thankful for it, and it helps us bring you better shows, and so we just want to remind you to do that. So let's dig into the next to the last episode, Trending Now and Then, because we've had so much good, juicy, inside information from Caprice. So let's get started with the last person on John's team, which is Cassandra. Now, in this particular challenge, we brought it up in the beginning. It's called Trending Now and Then. They had to pick a decade and have 2 different designs. Cassandra, so she did a shirt dress and a column dress. And do we have a picture? Here we go. Well, this is the column dress and sleeveless. It's a print. Now, I was a little on the fence about this dress.
I love the dress.
The only reason why I was on the fence about it, it doesn't fit a wide range of body types. No. I feel like you have to be straight up and down, not a lot of boobie, not a lot of booty. It's just, it's straight up and down. And sometimes we forget, the fact that we live in LA, or if you live in New York, we forget that, middle America, she's a size 12 or 14. Right. I don't know if she can wear that. Right. So I was on the fence about it, but Express, Erika loved it, and she put in a bid of $50,000. And then next up is the shirt dress from Cassandra.
Well, with the collar dress, I have to say, I think that with this dress in particular, with the movement of the models and with her walking is what really, in my opinion, where the dress really shines. Because when you see it here in the photo, it's
static.
It's static. It doesn't really, I think, photograph.
The dress was absolutely beautiful, but I was also concerned about exactly what you said. It's just sometimes a dress with that sort of neckline and going straight down, it can be very, you don't get the same feel as you would if you have more curves.
Right.
So that was really, my concern. But on these models and with the movement, to your point, it was absolutely beautiful. And I think even more so it showed Cassandra's ability to design. And it really showed a range. I would not have expected that dress from her. So I was very impressed.
What did you think, Steph? Did you like the column dress?
I did like the column dress a lot, and what I was curious about is that what fabric is there, because I did go on after, and because I like to go on and see how much stuff costs, and because it went to Express, that's made of polyester. So I don't know that polyester would flow the way that flowed when it was walking. So I wonder if, it's a little
I think it would change the whole look of the dress.
A little bit,
because this looks to me, it looked to me like more of a Saks or a higher end type of a style, especially with the fabric and the movement. When I saw that Express bought it, I thought the exact same thing. I wonder how they're going to replicate it using the fabrics.
But she got to buy.
Yeah, she
agreed.
gotta buy.
Like I wouldn't have expected this from Cassandra early in the competition.
Right.
Agreed. So
For
this
sure.
kind of showed her evolution.
Yeah.
Right.
So next up is her shirt dress. Very cute, little popped collar. She did it in a print, and she also did it in a solid. It looks like is it a drop waist?
It's a drop waist.
Hey, you bought it.
I did. I loved this dress.
Yeah, super cute.
I thought it was the perfect dress for summer.
Yeah.
Someone could just throw it on with you could wear some platforms or you could wear some flats and you would be pulled together. And I really like the color yellow.
Yeah.
I think yellow is a great
That
color for this time of year.
Too.
And that shade, because it can go either way.
Super cute.
So I really, really like that dress.
It looks a little tennis to me.
Yeah, it does.
I like it, but it's like
kind of like a little
sporty,
Chris
edgy.
Everett kind of, you know.
Yeah. Very cute.
I personally didn't like the print one, but when she came down in the yellow, I loved the yellow dress. It just
I think I didn't like the print one so much though, because you saw for me,
You saw where
because
the
I
drop
have
is.
right, because I have hips that for me to have that part of my body.
highlighted.
No good. No good. But when the yellow one walked afterwards, I was like, okay.
Now, let me ask you something, Caprice, about the whole buy now, wear now element of this show. So that's got to be a challenge, because we all know, everybody sitting at this table from what we've done or do, that, designers have a lot more time to figure out what the trends are going to be and what's happening and what prints and, colors are forecasted. Did that make this just so much more difficult for these designers to be able to go out and source, go to the fabric store, go to Mood or wherever the hell they go, to go and find something that's going to be buy now, wear now, and that's relevant for what's happening in fashion?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the most challenging pieces. You see, they spend a lot of time trying to get coached, if for lack of a better word, on fabric, and we spend a lot of time as buyers talking about the fabrics they chose. So the fabrications and the colors are, really very, very challenging for them to be able to project what's going to be important come that time of year. And we do try to, from our little buyer chair, try to impart some of that on them week after week, because we're obviously much more invested in knowing the go forward, fashion trends than even some of these designers. And I think the good designers are the ones who take the time to actually, shop and learn and attend and experience all of the different trade shows and fashion shows that there are, that really influence, as we all know, influence the trends of the next season. And some of the other ones, they were really in the moment trying to figure it out. But what I thought was kind of cool that I saw behind the scenes that I didn't know is how much they all really tried to help each other, especially in the beginning.
And we've heard that from them too, with JesseRay and Garrett.
Very much so. And I think, that kind of, mental heft of all of them together, some of them more experienced than others, they were able to make sure they kind of made some smart decisions.
Right.
You did see that in this show, which was really refreshing, because in a lot of reality shows, you see the competitors just at each other's throats, and that must add to the tension and everything going on. But, the drama you see in this show isn't so much about them interacting with each other, just things happening, like she loses her pattern, and it's really refreshing to see, because you do get a sense that they have a strong bond, and it's nice. It's like, as viewers,
but I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I like a little drama.
A little drama?
Sometimes I want to see a little, a little juice.
Well, there was some at the beginning with Daniel and Johanna.
They made nice nice in the end.
Yeah, everyone seemed to respect each other.
Sometimes I like a little shake it up. Okay. All right. Next, we got Nicole's team. So Daniel is the last man standing. And let's see here. His decade was inspired by the 60s, and Paco Rabanne was his, inspiration. So he did a pencil skirt and he did a short sleeve top. And who was it early in the season? Oh, it was when Daniel was partnered with Johanna. Remember they had the challenge where they had to do coordinating separates in each one, and remember they did the matching top and the matching skirt.
Yep. Right, so they had to buy it together.
And they had to buy it together, and he did the same thing, and we all said how smart that was because it forced the buyer to buy both pieces. So what did we think about Daniel's, let's see here, he had the pencil skirt and he had the short sleeve top, and he created his own print. What did we think?
So you didn't buy this one, right?
No.
So what did you think about it?
I mean, I liked it. I actually really liked it. I felt that I liked the organza with the black much more than I liked the white. And I was just a little bit concerned that it's a blessing and a curse that he did it the way he did it. I did feel that both pencil skirts I loved. I wasn't so in love with the fit of the top and its ability to be versatile. That's like our number one thing that we're concerned about. We want a size 2 and a size 22 to look fantastic in whatever we buy. So my concern was that it was a beautiful top, but it was so simple and kind of square that you really needed to have that perfect body to wear it. So that was my concern. And once I got there, then I thought, well, I can't have, as they say, the salt without the pepper. So it kind of killed the whole thing for me. But conversely, for Saks, it was the perfect, the perfect mix.
And they have it on the Saks website, merchandise together. They have the skirt and the matching shirt together, which was interesting. And I feel like it looks like, because the shirt with the pattern on it, I felt the fit was a little bit off. And it looks like they might have
brought it in a little bit.
It looked different because I did look at it online, and
it looked like it hugged the body
a little bit more. Good.
Well, it definitely, especially with the colors, and I think even this print that he created, it's for a certain body type. Again, I don't know if cousin Sheila in Ohio, who's shopping at Lane Bryant, I don't know if she can wear this, but. Saks loved it, and they got the skirt for $50,000. Let's check out Daniel's, the top, short sleeve top. All right, here's the top. It's funny, the top on the left, for whatever reason, it reminds me of Batman.
Me too. Spider-Man.
It looks like a bow tie. It also looked like a bow tie.
I'll be honest. I love the pencil skirt. I thought the pencil skirt was beautiful, and he created that pattern. The top, I was so disappointed by. It was the fit. Everything about it, I was disappointed because I was really hoping that it was going to be spectacular because of the background story, because we know he created this pattern, and I just didn't like that
The
top.
one thing I will say, though, I think the fact, if you just break down the silhouettes he chose, and then the fact that he Danielized them, he picked a pencil skirt, extremely saleable shape, right? And then he picked a short sleeve blouse, basically. So he picked two very understandable, accessible silhouettes, and then he totally brought his own design aesthetic with the making of the pattern and the choosing of the white fabric. So I do feel like, even though I didn't buy it, I feel like when I saw this come down the runway, I was like, okay,
he understands.
He's getting
He's got it. He's got it. He figured out a way to make it so she'd be able to buy it, but still be interesting and different. And he brought that.
It's that fine line, which at the beginning of the season we see him really struggling with, and we do see him now finally, like you said, understanding that. And I think it's been like a learning process for him.
And he gets that because he stated exactly that. He's like, I think I finally found the balance, where they'll buy it, but I feel like I've been creative with it, and I do, even though again, this shirt to me is not, I'm not a fan really, but I'm a fan that he went out there and did that.
And I love his confidence in this, because he said something and I wrote it down too. He's like, this piece is everything to me. It'll do everything for you. It'll hold your hand at night when you're cold.
Yeah,
I thought that was so adorable. horrible. And like he had such confidence in it, and I love that about him because he's like, you know, like I think one of you guys, Steph, you mentioned earlier, like if I go home because I'm designing something that I just didn't give who I was and my all to, I'd feel horrible. If I put it all in there, at least you know that you went for it. And I think that he has a great attitude.
His attitude has completely changed. In the beginning, I wasn't really a fan of him, to be honest, and now I'm kind of like, I'm a Daniel fan.
Yeah, a Dan fan.
Dan fan.
Well, you know what, John Varvatos, he made an interesting comment that I really liked. He said about Daniel. Sorry,
that's okay.
He said, you know, can you manage the art and the commerce about, you know, what he put together? And I thought that was an interesting comment, especially when you just said too, it was a blessing and a curse that he did this as a pair because it could have went really wrong, you know, completely. Yeah. And I kind of agree with John because great, you designed your own print and it's great and it doesn't exist, but is it saleable? Is it going to work? You know, what's it going to do? So I liked that comment, and that kind of like, it kind of grounded things a little bit, even though Daniel's making strides, but like it's just something for him to, you know,
still
tuck away back there, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's move on to Team Jessica. Let's see here. So this is JesseRay and Garrett. Y'all were all hanging out last night. So their decade of choice was the 50s, very Marilyn Monroe-ish, and this is a halter top and a short. And Macy's, you purchased this.
We did.
So what was the big love factor about these pieces?
We feel really, really good about this whole kind of pinup girl look. We think that's going to be really important for the summer, you know, and there's a lot of things with rompers coming back and short shorts and halters and cutouts and all of those kinds of things. So we thought they did a really great job of being able to bring that into a Macy's department store. The other thing I personally liked, there's details about the halter especially that nobody really, that you don't really realize. It has buttons and buttonholes. So you can adjust. You can on the front and the back on the straps.
Oh, really?
Also, you can crisscross them. So all of those little
that
pieces,
makes you want to go and buy that.
Yeah, all of those
probably
little pieces. Hopefully. But all of those things, you know, really come back to the whole need for us to have it be versatile, for the customer to be able to wear it, for it to be comfortable. So we really liked that. We also liked that they chose to do the second colorway is the yellow eyelet, because we talked about yellow and how important that is.
Right.
So, and then finally, I just was so impressed again. You know, I think JesseRay and Garrett are the designers that I think are, you know, and I say most improved kind of in quotes because there's not like there was anything wrong with what they were doing before. Fantastic knitwear designers, but their evolution really taking on separates and dresses and all these things that were not really in their arsenal before. I thought this was just a perfect example. And, you know, the dress that you're going to show next. Two great examples of them doing that.
Quick question. I know in a previous episode you made a comment to JesseRay and Garrett that these guys are known for knits. They have a business, they have a brand, they have a line for knits, but that's something that obviously they're tired of, but it's something that we didn't see in the competition.
Right.
And you challenged them to show us that. And I believe that episode we still didn't get to see it. So do you feel like you've really seen like the essence of who they are based off of what you already know about them?
No. I would say no, not in the course of this show. And you know, it was actually very interesting for me personally because I do just in retail, you know, like if you really know the retail industry, we do a big business in knit fabrications. I mean, we've got stores all across, you know, the nation and the weather patterns and everything and the ease of wearing knits. You know, women tend to gravitate to wanting to wear something that's knit based.
Right.
So that's why when I first met them, I was so excited to get a knit designer. You know, and even last year we had Lizzie. She was a knit designer. I'm always interested in getting them on the show.
Right.
But their ability to create interesting new knit items is not so easy, you know, like I've learned.
Right.
So I get why they kind of veered away from that throughout the course of the show, but I did really wish they had been able to find kind of the new knit. Like, what's going to be the new, you know, top that everyone has to have? What's going to be the next T-shirt? What's going to be the next 3/4 sleeve? And if they had been able to hit on that, I think that would have been very powerful.
Is it a time constraint? Do you think that
I think that's
is it
a
more
little
time consuming to do a knit versus a woven?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes, it's significantly more time consuming.
Yeah.
And I think that's what also became kind of a challenge, is that we don't give them that opportunity to really, you know,
Dive
to
into
really
that.
go there. You could potentially do a cut and sew, you know, which is going to be, you know, which is fine, and it maybe would have been a great example. But I think they probably were smart to push back on that. And their one attempt to do something very interesting in the knit arena, it didn't really sing like they thought it was going to. So.
No. All right, let's check out their second item was the sheath dress. So they did it in a fun, like, tropical print and then a solid. This is a great dress. I think they hit the decade, like, right on point.
Yep.
Saks picked this up at $55,000. What did you guys think of the dress?
I didn't like it.
You like it, really?
I didn't like where the slit was.
Oh.
For some reason, like
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was versatile. Like, I thought it was something that could
it's
appeal
totally
to
functional. Just
different
that
sizes.
slit for some reason for my eye,
It
like,
was, like,
where
off.
it goes.
You think it's a little too over, like
or it
not
should be on the other side. Like, because I feel like your eye goes from, like, left corner to top right. You know what I mean? So it just stops there. Like, for me, like, for a designer eye, it, like, just stops there rather than flowing.
Well, I like that it was in the front because we're used to seeing a slit in the back.
Yeah,
so I think
like
that made it a little
more
new and
interesting.
interesting to look at.
I like the back. I actually really like
awesome.
with the
Yeah.
And I thought that was with the lapels in the back. I thought was very, very nice.
Yeah. And I feel like they didn't, like, if there would have been a smaller lapel in the front or something, it would have matched more. But, I mean,
The one thing I will say, too, is I think, you know, for the most part, it's very difficult to make a sheath dress new and different, right? I mean, this is a pretty basic silhouette.
Right.
And that's where the prints come into play.
Yeah.
The fact that they chose to do a really great summer white, you know, so it's real crisp and fresh, and then that fantastic print.
Yeah,
the
it's a
print
great
made
print.
the dress.
Yeah.
The print. If they had done that in some other print, it might have been not as much of a wow.
I feel like, too, on the Saks website, that the print one is the only one that was available.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know if
the white sold out or if they didn't.
Yeah, or if it's just not there. But I went just, again, because I'm curious about how much stuff costs. And the only dress that was on their thing was the floral one. The white one totally could have sold out. It could be there. I could be wrong. But
The print, I did like the print a lot. And prints are so big right now that it just fit in perfectly with the current trends.
Like
and they went for it.
I like the slit,
did.
actually. I liked it in the front, personally. I thought it looked cute,
I like it in the front. I just don't like it exactly where it is.
Yeah.
But I'm not wearing it.
Yeah.
So. It's all good.
Clearly somebody liked it.
Everybody else did. I'm okay with that.
Liked it.
All right, let's move on to Hunter. Now, in my opinion, Hunter, from the very beginning, she has kind of been the designer to watch, you know?
Yeah.
She came out of the gate just, you know, fast, furious. Everybody knew who she was. You know, she had, like, this great design aesthetic. Then she hit some bumps along the way, but, like, she's still here. So Hunter, this is her fit and flare dress, and you guys got into a bidding war about this.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. I thought this dress was beautiful. I especially love the black lace. Colored lace is such a big trend for the spring. But it just was that you feel like you're special and you're going somewhere wearing that dress. I think also the way that they styled it was perfect, you know, and those are some of the things that happen behind the scenes that can really make or break you know, it coming down the runway also. But I think Hunter, to your point, she kind of has been the front runner. And then the last couple of weeks, she really hit a bump. And she, you know, I wasn't sure she was going to rebound from that. So I was so excited to see that she, you know, we were saying, oh, she's got to get her mojo back. And I think she even said on the show, oh, I guess I got my mojo back. You know, because she was very much, you know, not used to being on the other side
Right.
of the decision-making process.
And I think it was Cassandra who said that, you know, if Hunter has 1 week where she doesn't get bought and she just can't get over it, this is going to be the demiser. Because
Right.
everybody else has experienced that not being bought, and this was her first time, and she just kind of was like, oh my God. And all the other contestants are like, you know, get a grip. We got to move on. And even Jessica Simpson was like, she's so talented. And I thought that was interesting that she said, too, Jessica was like, you know, out of everyone here, I find she's has the most promise. She's like, but her attitude, she's like, broke my heart because
she put so much pressure on
she
herself.
put a lot of pressure.
I mean, I think, you know, you have to wonder, and I think about this, you know, as I'm watching the show, is it easier to be the one that's like, quote unquote, the front runner, or is it easier to be the one
horse.
that's like, you know, moving, growing, expanding? Because if you start at such a high level, you know, you and me and everyone in America is expecting you to deliver at that level the whole time. She went for so many weeks not being in the bottom. I can only imagine what that, you know, it just totally shattered her confidence.
That she's so close to the end.
Right.
It's like.
And I think, too, the fact that in the beginning, because her brand sold in Saks, her own personal brand, and then it didn't, you know what I mean? Something happened, I believe she said. And then to hear, you know, last week from Saks, like, you're not our fashion star. Not that she was kicked off, you know what I mean? So for her, when that was kind of in the beginning, it probably rattled her a little bit.
I have to say, last week, I don't know if you guys remember what she had last week, but she had that really cute, like, sleeveless anorak jacket. What was the deal with that jacket? That jacket was fantastic.
I liked it too.
I liked it. I actually wanted to buy it when I saw it.
I wanted to buy it, and it was stylish.
cute.
I was like, go Daniel
I was
Musto with the
surprised.
styling. I love that jacket. Nobody bought that jacket.
No. Why?
Why?
I mean, okay. I did like the jacket. I didn't like the men's. I liked the women's.
Love the women's.
But I had the issues that I had with her choosing to do that at that moment. One, I thought that it was, you know, vests in general are really tough. Kind of a limited piece. You know, it's kind of an icing piece. I guess I saw it as this would be great in your collection. Right. But is it what you send down the runway to get to the point where you're making a collection? And that was really the thing. And there were so many other amazing things that were coming down the runway last week. That it just really, you know, it becomes a question of choices. You know, for me.
Oh, I loved that because I wanted it.
But it was great to see her able to do such a casual piece. You know, so that I thought was really cool. And, you know, I will just say with Hunter, I do think, you know, I said it at the beginning, I do like the fact that almost every single one of them had their own mini breakdown and then kind of rose from that because this is a business. You know, at the end of the day, this is a business, as we all here know. And you do have to have that kind of tough skin. And sometimes as creative beings, it's more difficult to build that tough skin. And I think they were given basically 10 weeks of intense, you know, skin building, you know, for lack of a better word. So I think that it actually has proven to be really good for her and for all of them to have had those, you know, stresses and strains to make them better at what they do.
And even with this, she bounced back and got the buy from Saks.
Right.
So it was like after that, for me, it was just like she totally took that on and was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this.
This
you know,
education.
And then he picked her. And then she, you know.
What's a great dress?
It is a great dress. It's a great dress.
I do like the black lace one significantly better than the gray and black one. I actually didn't care for the gray and black one when it first came down the runway, me personally, but that black lace one, oh,
it's a great shape. It's a great shape that could work on lots of different body types.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole fit and flare, you know, short or long, that's always a good way to go.
All right, so let's check out Hunter's last piece. It was the lace dress, and she had 2 different colors. I thought this was great. Just lace, it's a pop color, very feminine, very girly, and Express got this one for $200,000.
I just think it's pretty amazing that in one show she got the most bid from 2 different stores. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what they're looking for in showing versatility and being able to design for those different stores. So I think that was a big feat to.
Yeah, and I think it probably went very far in her confidence level.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the highest bid, I don't recall from last season, did we even know that like there was a limit to what you guys were allowed to bid on? Because this season it's very clear, you know, that 200,000 is the most that any buyer can bid on. I don't know if we knew that last season.
We had a couple of situations early in the season where where the designers had to choose. And I don't know that it was at the 200,000 though, to be honest with you. I think last season we actually had a couple of times where, you know, me and maybe one of the other buyers didn't want to go up any higher.
Oh,
so,
okay.
And then the designers had to choose.
Okay.
Here, there was much more.
There's a limit
of the kind of the experience of us both getting to that 200,000.
Okay.
And then the designers having to choose, which I think is, you know, I don't really envy the designers having to make that choice because that's a really tough. You could see it in their face. They're like, oh, I really would rather not have to say.
Yeah.
But. You know.
They all seem to, though, make honest choices. Like, even Hunter with Express, she's like, you saved me last week.
Right.
Like, I'm going to do this. And the week before, or a couple weeks ago with JesseRay and Garrett, when you were like, you know what, it's important for you to be in all 3 stores. I'm going to give this one to Express. They all seem to come back around with that.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's strategy. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, you have to be in all 3 of the stores.
Right.
So, I mean,
you definitely have to be strategic. And I think, you know, you have to kind of balance the selling every week with the end game and kind of for yourself decide when you're going to kind of make that mental shift,
Right.
you know, because some will start selling to one particular retailer every single week. And it's great you're selling weekly, but at what point do you start to think, okay, if only Macy's is buying me and the other 2 aren't even bidding on me,
there's a problem.
what is this going to look like?
I feel like that was a little bit of with Sylvia. She was, you know, a Saks girl. You know what I mean? When she's great, but it was a little bit that she needed the versatility to go to the other 2 stores for this show.
Yeah.
So.
what are your thoughts on this dress here in particular?
I thought this dress was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved, again, the use of the colored lace. I thought it was sexy, but I still feel like it would be great on all different body types and all different heights, which sometimes, you know, we do also do a petite business.
Right.
So I thought the dress was absolutely beautiful,
gorgeous.
you know, and I was glad that she got bought.
I like the yellow.
All right, so we're at the end, and our friends JesseRay and Garrett were eliminated. Somebody had to go, and it was them. But since you're here, Caprice, we'd love to know, so if you had like a magic ticket, you know, if there were anyone that was sent home in the past up until this point in the competition that you could bring back, who would that be and why?
Wow, that's a good question. You know who I really would have liked to have seen Brandon go a little bit further than he did. I think that he's such an amazingly talented menswear designer. I think it's tough for men's designers on here because John Barbados himself has said menswear is an evolution, you know, not a revolution. So that means things change gradually over time. You're not going to send someone down the runway and just be like, oh my God, I've never seen a short like that in my life. You know, so it's much more difficult to make a splash in menswear. But I think Brandon was really pushing the envelope, and I think he has a lot to give, and he's extremely talented. And I wish that we had, you know, if I could do it over again, I'd have liked to have seen, you know, what more he could have brought.
And actually, I was going to ask you that same question. If you could do it over again in retrospect and looking at all the items, is there anything that you didn't bid on that you wish you did?
Wow, I don't even know. To be honest, I don't even know. I can't think of anything, honestly, that I didn't bid on. I think there's probably some things that, you know, in retrospect, I'm like, should I have maybe, you know, pushed harder to get some things? But I would say every single thing we bought, even after, because, you know, you buy it and then I don't even really remember everything. I feel very, very good about everything we bought, and seeing it a second time kind of reinforced, you know, like it is a personal kind of, you know, feeling of accomplishment when you see it again. And because there are some times where, you know, I know as a buyer in my, you know, in my real life, there were times where I saw something in the show where I'm like, this is fantastic. I'll take them all. You know? And then it gets to the floor and you're like, oh.
Your sell-through is like 0.
Or you see something in the showroom and you're like, I don't know, I'll just test it.
Or your planner is like, no, Caprice.
Not, you know.
You can only have 2, not 3.
And then you get it on the floor and it blows out and you're like, wow, I wish I had been more aggressive with that. You know.
Wow.
Okay. So, do you guys have any burning questions for Caprice?
I have a question as well. Did you foresee these 3 designers being the last 3 standing?
Wow, that's a really good question. No, I would say I did not.
Who would you have thought would be the?
I honestly, I didn't know. I was when we picked the designers, and we started from, I don't even know how many they started from to ultimately come down to these 12. I thought every single one of them had absolutely, you know, I genuinely thought every single one of them had what it took to be the fashion star. Genuinely. So every single week, the decision to send someone home was really tough because we knew they were so talented. So every week, my thoughts of who would make it to the final changed. And I'm excited that it's these 3. I think it's interesting that there's a representative of each mentor actually in the final 3. That was not by design. It just worked out that way. But I think it's kind of, it couldn't have worked out any better for there to be someone from each mentor, you know, actually in the final 3. And their design aesthetics all are so much different from one another that I think it's just going to be really fun for the viewers and for us to ultimately decide. You know, there's not anyone who's like, oh, they're kind of alike. Every one of them is decidedly different from the other.
They really are.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned this in your response, but that you had somewhat of a say as to who exactly was casted in this season. How much of a say do you have versus, you know, the other buyers and producers and everything?
We all, I mean, I would say we all ultimately, all of us buyers have an equal, you know, an equal share. And the way that the show is set up is they do recognize, the producers and all of them, they recognize that we as the buyers are really kind of the experts when it comes to the, the design piece. So they were very respectful of that. They very much wanted our input on, you know, who we felt would really be able to do what we need the show to do. Because at the end of the day, we really want to bring fashion that we know our viewers are going to want and that they're going to want to buy. So
I have one last quick question. Is there any type of, and you might not be able to answer this, but is there any type of, like, after the show's over, you guys can't buy those designers' other brands or anything like that? Or any of the designers?
That I know of.
Yeah, like if any of the designers, do they currently have anything in Macy's?
None of the ones that we have right now. Okay. None of them do.
I just didn't know if that would affect that.
Well, last question for our special guest. What advice would you give to any young designer just who wants to be on the show, who's going to audition for the next season? What advice would you give to them?
I would say the one thing I would definitely say they should do is first you need to apply. I know that seems obvious, but you'd be surprised. I would say definitely apply. I would say as you're kind of getting your thoughts together, really be clear on what is your design aesthetic. You should be able to explain to me in an elevator ride who you are as a designer and what your purpose is and why you're different. You know, and so really, really think about that. If you actually come to the casting without that thought, it becomes very challenging at that point because we may like what you're doing, but we're already thinking ahead and thinking, well, you know, his jackets don't really go with the pants, don't really go. How is that going to come together? And then I would say, should you actually get chosen between that time and the time you're on the show, just make sure you really have all of your kind of ducks in a row. You know, you have no idea what the challenges are going to be, but you do at least have given really good thought of what you would do if maybe there was a pant that you were going to design or whatever. I think the ones who kind of came in with a game plan, even though you can't really predict, you do know that at the end of the day, now that you've seen the show twice, you know, 2 seasons, you know we're going to want you to do more than dresses. You know we're going to want to see your range. You know we're probably going to challenge you to do something out of your comfort zone. So think about those things ahead of time, you know, and really come with your game plan so that at least you have a point of reference.
Well, thank you so much, Caprice, for joining us this week.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We love finally getting you here in the studio. We've got one more episode to go, and before we wrap it up, really quickly, we always do predictions.
Okay.
So next week is our last show. Obviously, you can't participate.
I think one of the 3 is going to win. That's my prediction.
She's narrowed it down.
I think she's right.
Let's go around the room. Steph, what's your prediction for the winner?
Honestly, I think Cassandra.
Okay. All right.
That was my vote. Cassandra.
Cassandra?
Yeah, I think she's a dark horse.
Obviously, it's one of the three. That's your answer. I'm sticking with Hunter.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with Hunter. I've been on her bus from the very beginning, and I'm staying on the bus.
All right.
I'm on the Hunter
Not
bus.
getting off, staying on till the end.
Staying on to the end.
There you go.
Well, thanks guys for tuning in. Be sure to check us out next week because we're going to have some other special guests in the studio for the Fashion Star finale. We'll have some, maybe JesseRay and Garrett will come back.
Yeah,
and
I think
join us.
Johanna,
Johanna, Lauren Gish, who was here last week with us, one of the models. So it's going to be good.
Yay.
Caprice will be on vacation somewhere. All right, guys. Another big thanks to Caprice Willard for joining us in the studio. And that's all we got, right, guys?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Can we find anybody anywhere? Twitter?
You can find me on
Instagram?
Twitter at IAMStefZ with an F.
And you can find me, Erika Vieira, at Twitter at Erika Vieira LA, and I have a clothing line as well at rallybabe.com.
Are you tweeting, Caprice?
I am. You can find me on at Caprice Willard, but also at Macy's.
Lovely. And you guys can find me on Twitter at GoToGirlTV. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.